This is Rhumel.
And this is Twanda. We are the co-hosts of Girrrl, Can I Ask You Something podcast,
where you get to be a fly on the wall listening to conversations between two best girlfriends. Take a quick listen.
Rhumel on cooking during the pandemic.
Every day it's like another day on Chop, the Food Network,
My thoughts on Issa Rae's new movie.
Oh, I love everything Issa Rae does.
Yeah.
Until then.
Rhumel's favorite topic.
We're talking about orgasms, girl. Orgasms. It's like one of my favorite topics.
We like to laugh, but we don't always agree.
It was a great idea. I like it.
It was a bad idea.
If you like what you heard, Girrrl, Can I Ask You Something podcast releases new episodes every Tuesday.
You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms or girrlpodcast.com. That's Girrrl with 3 R's.
Sisters, come together now, come together now. It's time to help each other out, It's time for transformation, time for healing. You've got the potential, you've got the power now. We can soar. Sisters overcoming and rising. Inspiration, interviews, and more. We can soar. A sisterhood for healing and empowerment. Join Dr. Stephanie and Soar.
Our topic, Girrrl, what would I tell my 20-year-old self? My special guests are Rhumel Anderson and Twanda Baker. They are longtime friends who have been married to their respective husbands for over 20 years. They have teenage and young adult kids, careers, and so many questions about everything. When they realized that their often used phrase, "Girrrl, can I ask you something?" sparked hours of conversation, they decided to share these fun discussions with others in the form of a laughter-rich podcast. In each episode, the Girrrl, Can I Ask You Something podcast showcases sisterhood, celebrating their accomplishments, sharing their challenges, and encouraging their dreams. So I'm so excited to have this dynamic duo with their thriving podcast and their fun and jovial nature on the show to help me discuss this topic of what would I tell my 20-year-old self. I'm so excited about this topic. What would I tell my 20-year-old self? And I'm excited to be a third wheel, so to speak, because you guys are the dynamic duo. So I get to be a third wheel today. That's funny.
I don't know. I thought we were like, I don't know. We're the extra wheel, right? This is your show.
Right. It's my show, but you guys are a known commodity together. So
Rhumel, we're a thing.
We're a thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like that. Exactly. A thing. So what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think of, like, what would you tell your 20-year-old self?
I first think that all this wisdom I have now, oh my gosh, if I could have put that in my 20-year-old self, I would have been dangerous. And I like that idea.
Yeah. I think for myself, I think I would have been like, chill. Chill. Everything's going to be okay. And everything is not as serious as you think it is in this very, very moment, and just enjoy part of this. You only have one time through it, and kind of enjoy it as you go along. And I know for me, it felt more like a sprint than a marathon. And so my first thing that came to my head was just slow down, girl. It's going to be okay.
Okay, that was not at all the first thing that came to my head. It was like, girl, ramp it up. So, I mean, we live different lives. Come on, Rhumel. Okay. You're the do it. I mean, like if you know her story, she's doing the most. And I felt like I chilled a lot of my life and didn't catch that second wind until later on in life. So I would go back and I tell myself, girl, you need to get some more adventure in your life. You want to go overseas and study abroad? Do it. No, seriously, do it. Make it happen. You won't regret it. As a matter of fact, try to live your life with less regrets. And that doesn't mean don't be adventurous, but it means to try things and see if you like it or not, and just be open to exploring more. That's what I think I needed.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting how you both kind of are coming from opposite perspectives. And
I don't know how we're friends.
It works. Opposites attract, right?
Yeah. Right.
And I am more on the side of Rhumel. I feel like I was worried about a lot of stuff. I was like very kind of focused. And I probably needed some of that in order to kind of get to where I wanted to get through medical school. But I would have definitely told myself to worry less and just enjoy the moments, because they don't come again. You get it once.
Right. I think that's the thing. And when you're always working, it's really easy to be like, oh, well, you don't savor it. You just don't savor the thing that has made you happy in that moment. Or sometimes you don't even recognize, like, this was a really good thing. You just let it go. And, if I had to do it all over again, I think that's just what I would do. I mean, that's where I would start. But there are a whole lot more other things that I would tell my 20-year-old self.
I would taking it away from career, because I can think of something very specific. I would tell just me. It wouldn't necessarily apply to the rest of you all, but I would change my thought about education. See, Rhumel, you went to school for business, and she has her own business. Like, she's been in business from the moment I met her. She's just always been on her own doing her thing. She used her degree. I think I took all these things that I learned, all the mistakes I made in college, and I drilled it into my children. So I can't talk to my 20-year-old self and do anything differently, but by golly, I can talk to my 20-year-old kid and tell them all the things that I learned that might apply to them. So I'm not really living vicariously through my kids. Maybe I am. Maybe. I don't know, but I'm at least trying to pass it on to them, because I can't do it over again. Right. But I can at least impart that wisdom to them. And one of the ones that I have passed on is that relationships many relationships have expiration dates. Like, a relationship might be good for a time. It wasn't, not all relationships, and I mean friendships and not just romantic relationships, but some people come into your life for a reason, for a time period. And then when that expires, it's over. Their purpose in your life, what you're supposed to learn from that experience, comes and it goes, and it's okay. It doesn't have to be like what I was saying, don't take it so seriously. It doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, my best friend left me, Maybe you're in high school. You went to different colleges. Your best friend's not around anymore. Found another best friend. Those things throw us off. But I think if you understood that sometimes a relationship, it can be great. A friendship can be awesome, but then it can go away, and learn what you need to learn and go forward. I think I worry too much. Oh, I lost my friends. And before I figured out, oh wait, life gave me other friends. I see. And that I learned something. I think that would be helpful. And of course, that definitely applies in romantic relationships.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. No, that's a great one. Another one that came to mind for me was, now we're kind of living in the age of Black girl magic. We have all of these phenomenal Black women. We've got Serena, we've got Venus, we've got Vice President-elect Kamala Harris.
All right.
And I know we're not all the same age, but we do have some decades that we crossed together, like the 80s and the 90s, when we had some of our coming of age. What did we have back then? Like, did we know we had Black girl magic? And if we did,
it wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing. Okay, because I'm like, did we have a different name for it? Did we even know we had it? What was it?
Rhumel, what do you think? I don't remember.
It's a difficult question for me to answer as a child because I didn't grow up around too many other Black people. So it made it very difficult for me to pinpoint Black girl magic.
Okay, wait.
See what I'm saying?
Can we just go back to, let's go to your childhood when you were in college at FAMU.
I was about to,
very magical to me.
That is where I just started to discover what that Black girl magic was, but we didn't have a name for it. It just felt, when you feel empowered, that's when your magic comes out. Mm-hmm. And so for me, being at FAMU, I'm going to rep, I'm going to rep, but being there and feeling like, not the oddity, not feeling like the odd man out all the time and feeling that sense of community, it's empowering. And that's when you start to feel like you can take on the world. And we didn't call it Black girl magic. I think we just thrived. And, me and my classmates, we just thrived. And we recognized that we were in, I would say, a special situation, because once you leave those halls, you don't necessarily have that same environment ever really in the rest of your life, so it was magical, but we didn't call it Black girl magic back then. I wish we did.
I wish we did too. All I can remember back then is that you have to work twice as hard to get the equal pay, equal respect, 2 and 3 times as hard. I remember that. So more so than you having magic in you, you're going to have to work twice as hard just to break even with everyone else. So it felt like we've got a struggle to fight for more than anything. Didn't even realize our Black girl magic. So I'm really glad my kids are growing up during this time, and for all the young Black people, kids growing up, especially the girls during the Black girl magic time. I think that means something, and it can give them some of the things that by just wanting to have this conversation today, wanted to tell ourselves. We would like to give ourselves Black girl magic, if we could, when we were 20. Like, one of the things that I wish my 20-year-old self knew was that when it came to men, they will do stuff to get your attention and your approval. So it's not always you have to do stuff to get their attention. Now, actually, men are just attracted to women. And if we had done a better job of saying, pull your pants up if you want my attention, we might not have this sagging pants issue we have right now.
Can we go back so we can change that one thing? Can we I just need them to change that one thing.
I vote for that. The 3 of us, that should be enough. That's a quorum, right?
That's a quorum.
I think had we known our power back then, we could have changed. But I didn't know these things. I thought I fell for the Cinderella or Snow White. We wait for the guy. I just didn't know that we had a lot of power, and they would do things just to get our attention. So we had magic, and some women knew it. Did you know those girls who grew up knowing they had Black girl magic and they didn't tell the rest of us?
Yeah.
They're the ones.
So rude.
That was so rude.
So rude.
Very rude. And you could spot them from a mile away. Yeah. They definitely carried themselves with an aura, and it was like an aura of confidence. And you could always spot them because they always had a trail of men right behind them, right? Like the Pied Piper or something. They were just because it was attractive.
Confidence, regardless whether you're a man or a woman, is attractive. It's just facts. You know what I mean?
Do you think their parents, their moms specifically, told those girls, "Hey, you've got work"? Did they tell them something I didn't get? I'm curious. Like, how did they acquire this information? Do I have to now come back in another life and whisper to my next life? Like, oh, magic, you got this. Like, how do, I'm doing the best I can. I have one daughter. Yeah. So I'm doing the best I can there. But, I'm just curious, how did the ladies get the jump on me in the past?
I don't know. I mean, like, I know my mom and my dad, because we didn't have the other surrounding, we didn't have any family in the area. We didn't have a lot of support system. So they were always our cheerleaders, right? So if there was, I never had a reason to lack confidence if I only took an account for my family. But then you just have the general environment that you're dealing with every day. And if you're feeling beat down or insecure, then that confidence, I think, only takes you so far. And so I don't think it's necessary. I think home definitely comes into play. I definitely don't think you don't find that inherent sense of confidence without that coming from home. But I think it's also your environment that you are raised in.
Yeah. And I didn't really get that from home, that sense of you can do this. My mom wasn't really present a lot of times when I was growing up. So I definitely think that played a part in it. And it was something I had to learn a little bit later on. But I agree. I mean, you can get beat down from inside and from the rest of the world. And I do think that those girls probably, even if their mothers didn't say it to them, they probably witnessed it. They probably saw how either their mothers or some other women in their lives carried themselves. Mm-hmm. And they probably saw that soft power. This is a new term that I just learned, is soft power. We think that you have to be aggressive or assertive to be powerful. But like what you just said, we were powerful beyond what we knew. Mm-hmm. And it came from our ability to be soft. If you picture these women, they weren't, aggressive or assertive. They were soft. Sometimes they were soft-spoken. Sometimes they, were delicate in their movements, but they had a lot of power. So I think they probably saw it at some point growing up.
Mm-hmm. I would agree. I mean, results breeds results, right? If you know that if you flutter your eyelashes or if you're subtle in this way and you get attention, hey, let's do that again, and
I didn't learn how to really flirt until too late in my life. Like nobody taught me how.
Nobody taught me either.
What to do with it. By the time I learned at one point, and I hate that it took till college to figure it out, but that I learned that by just smiling and being nice to random guys, and I'm not saying I did, but I would go to a store and let's say go somewhere, I remember this specifically, somebody was stocking the vending machine and I said something nice and I smiled. I smile at everybody, by the way. But I smiled and he ended up giving me like a free snack. I was like, oh, here you go. You like these chips? Here you go. It's like, wow, thank you. But then I realized later that I could do that over and over again. And it worked. I learned that I could do a certain thing. I could smile a certain way and men would give me things. And with that power that I figured out, it scared me. And I was like, I'm not going to use that. I remember thinking, I'm not going to do that because that doesn't seem right. Mm-hmm. Today, Twanda, that'd be different, right? It's just that it was like I got a glimpse of that. And I don't want to use it for bad. That's not what I'm saying I would do. But I would harness that and use it more appropriately. Like if I could learn to finesse it. Youth is wasted on the young. Man, if I could just go back with the information I had now, I think things would be different. I do want to talk about romantic relationships though, y'all.
Yeah.
What do you want to talk about?
I want to talk about sex.
Oh, okay. Well, let's get down to it. Oh, I'm sorry. This isn't our show. I'm sorry.
Go right ahead. Let's get down to it.
Oh my gosh. I had no idea how much like I've learned. And, everybody, if you don't like what I'm saying, please write Dr. Stephanie, not me. This is her show.
No, it's
So if you don't like it, just write her. There is power in sex, and I never knew anything about it. I didn't know how to work it. So we see young ladies who know how to work it, and I don't mean kids, but young ladies who know how to work it. Men will do things for the potential for sex. I didn't realize that. I think some women did. I used to think that it was better. It was the goal to make sure he got off and he enjoyed it. And I thought that the woman was supposed to put it down, and he was going to be, he's going to love it. And it took so long for me to recognize, oh wait, I'm supposed to get a lot out of this too. Like that wasn't ever a thing. If you looked at the music and what it was saying, she was always bright. I don't know how much that's actually changed, to be honest. In the music, you hear that, I got well, no, I'm not going to say that you will get people writing to you, but, it was all about, I'm going to please this man and I'm going to make it good for him and this and that. It was rarely about, it was good for me. That's not right. So there was so much I didn't know about that. And had I known that, things would have been different too.
Yeah. So, should we have had WAP when we were 20 years old?
You mean the song or
the song WAP by Cardi B?
Okay. Or what, Rhumel? The song or what?
I just wanted to make sure I was approaching this appropriately. That's all, dear. That's all. I mean, I think the idea of the song WAP is supposed to be empowering, and I get it. I don't particularly care for it. I think that, I don't know. It's an expression I just don't get into, but I think the idea of being in charge of your own sex life, I think, yes, that's empowering. So if we're asking from that perspective, yes, WAP, yes, give it to me. I'm in charge. Okay.
No, I don't know. I haven't listened to the word. I don't know the words by heart, but I'll tell you my impression was not very different than what I mentioned before. It sounds like she's bragging on what she has and what she can give and do to him. I don't know. I don't listen to them. I don't know the lyrics. I wish I could have bring it up. Yeah. But if she's saying, "Oh, I got satisfied. He satisfied me. He did this to me," I felt this way about. More so that maybe he's giving to her and she's getting something out of it. But I heard her bragging about her WAP and what she could put down on him and what she could do and how great she is for him. I didn't hear a whole lot about I'm having a great sexual experience. Right. That's what I agree
with
make it
you.
Academic. That's what I don't remember many songs about. He gave it to me good. Like, it's always, I do it good. I got the best thing. Look at what I can do for him. I think that's still a big thing.
I think it's telling that even a song, I agree with you first off. I totally agree with you. But I think it's also telling that it's 2020 and it takes that long for even women to have a song that is even speaking about sex like in that manner. You know what I mean? Like, where she feels empowered enough to really put her WAP out there like that, right? Guys have been slinging that thing for as long as we can remember, right? In some form or another. And so it's just kind of telling about the lack of power we as women kind of take over our own body. And I agree with you, Twanda. I think this even falls short of that in the sense that it's about the fact that her stuff is so good that that this guy can't, do without it. I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I think that also the other thing that was very telling was the outrage that I heard from men about that song. Outrage.
Yes.
Oh, it's so inappropriate. We don't want our young girls. We don't want our 20-year-old daughters hearing this song.
Yes.
Oh, so many men that I know were just outraged. And like even male public figures, just how, this is so crude and how dare she do this? And we don't want this influence on our 20-year-old girls. So just like we were talking about our 20-year-old self, and there's a lot of reasons we didn't know that we had the type of power that we had because men didn't want us to know and they still don't.
I agree with you. And I think it's a shame. I'm always on Facebook, but I was reading in a hair group, no less. The hair groups always talk about sex. I don't know why, but anyway, but they were talking about women having orgasms, and so many of the women who were on there really had given up on the idea of being pleasured in bed. And some of these women were not just older. Some of these women were younger, and they don't even connect with the idea that it's a 50-50 kind of thing, right? You get some pleasure, I get some pleasure, we're all good, but it's more of always like a giving, just giving. And some of these women were straight up like, I just don't expect this to happen during sex. And I'm just okay with it. I've just gotten over it. They've just gotten over it. And I'm like, that's awful. Whose idea is that? It's not mine.
I think it's an American thing. I don't know any other cultures, but I think it might be an American thing. I told you I'm getting out of America for a while so I can learn other cultures. But I do think just when you think about women's sexuality, we know a whole lot about men, and men have, if ever their business goes limp, they got lots of tools for that. And and when it comes to birth control, it's always on the woman. I just feel like we, as a country, our culture is never focused on women. Never cared as much about whether women get pleasured. So we're along this long line of we just no, they don't have to think about us. It's going to be a new phase when we actually start talking about no, I want you to pleasure me too. And, there's something I need that, and for women to know what they need and be able to ask for it, that's a whole nother. Now that's where we come involved again, where we have to pass this on to our 20-year-old. We can't take it to ourselves, but we've got kids. I haven't really figured out how to tell this to my daughter.
Yeah, I was just sitting here thinking about that. I was like, how do I have, do we, that is like, that's a super frank conversation.
It is. And it's one that needs to be had, because if you don't tell people if you don't let them know, hey, I got way too far in life before I realized, oh, wait, it can be about me too.
Right.
What? And so I don't want that for my child, because then she's going to get too late, maybe, and feel the same way. And by the way, I got quiet because I pulled up the lyrics to WAP. And I was reading just to make sure that I had a good concept of what was going on. And I know my daughter, because this is during she's a young lady during this time, she probably can spew these off the back, by memory. And even if that's what they are thinking that sex is, it's still about having a WAP so that he feels good. It's about letting him do all his porn fantasies on her, and she's here for it. And it's even about, and I have been accused of slut shaming. I'm so glad this is your show and not mine. Anyway, I've been accused of slut shaming because I'm like, well, you're talking about sex for all the things he can give you. She doesn't seem to be having a whole lot of fun. She just likes to know she can do it good and that he'll give her stuff for it. And is this the message that's going out? I was just shocked that still I don't hear a lot of women talking about what they can get out of it. So if we don't tell the young people that, the young ladies, hey, there's something real good in it for you, and you can ask for what you want, and you should have a partner who is interested in making sure you get what you need. I don't even think we know that.
Well, let me, on the flip side of that, I don't have any boys, but do we talk to our boys to say, look, this is not all about you? I mean, is anybody having those conversations? I'm just curious. I know we're not talking about.
I don't think so. My boys are too young right now, but I don't think so. I mean, I'm around lots of other mothers of boys, and I have not heard them saying that they're having those conversations. And I think you hit on a good point. What I'm seeing is that young women are looking for partners who can give them material things and not really looking to get their own pleasure. And it seems a little bit transactional in terms of, okay, it doesn't matter if I experience pleasure from this intimate act because I'm going to get this Louis Vuitton purse or whatever, this material thing. So it's definitely different.
Yeah. And I think that's, so we do have, okay, so y'all are both saying, well, I don't know anybody. Well, I am a mother of two boys. One is 17 and one will be 20 this month. And it's still too soon to have that conversation. But I think that maybe his father is in a good position to have that conversation with him. I hear what you're saying. I probably should be the one as well to plant that in his ear. I'm not going to do it at this age. It still seems quite young, or I can't see myself having that conversation yet, but eventually I can, because as I get older, I feel I lose a lot of my hesitations about things. And I speak on more things than I ever spoke on before. Every year that I get older, it's something about getting older that gives you, just loosens the tongue and lets you say what you want. But at some point, I do feel like it's part of my responsibility, perhaps, when he decides to get married, because like my oldest son, he's the marrying kind. I know he's probably going to want to do that. Then I'll make sure my husband has that conversation with him. I might do it, but I'll make sure that happens.
Oh, that's cool.
But you have to check in with me several years later, and
I'm going to check in with you, like, how
that happened. Yeah,
I mean, because honestly, it is both. It's on both sides of the equation. Like, yes, women, we have to feel empowered enough to ask for what we want, and it doesn't have to be this big ask. We have ways, right, of making our desires known, and having men do what we need them to do to make us feel good. We have that power. But we also have to, there's both sides. We have to be able to tell our girls that, but there's a 50-50 thing. Our guys need to understand that they play a role in it too. So
y'all just check in with me, because y'all have put a challenge out there for me. I hear you, and I have to find a good time for that conversation as well. There is a too early for this conversation scenario. So I'll make sure that'll be part of something I take on, because I think that is important. And I would like to be able to say I passed on some good information to my kids. And I said that I think my son is the marrying kind and he'll want to get married. I think I'm right about that. But I want to teach my children that marriage is not the goal. Not necessarily. I don't think marriage is for everybody. And I feel like our culture especially teaches our girls that we're waiting for Prince Charming to come and sweep us off our feet so we can live happily ever after. And we haven't done enough to provide a more realistic view of what is fulfilling in life. If you find a partner, I think that's great. I just don't think that is like the answer for everybody. And you don't have to do it by a certain time or you're running late on on your life. You know, I want to make sure that my daughter specifically doesn't feel like she has to be like Cinderella or Snow White and has to wait
Girl,
for
Disney is the worst. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I mean, fairy tales, I'm not talking about, the company themselves, but like in terms of the fairy tales of Cinderella and Snow White and all that kind of stuff, especially in a modern society where we as women have a much bigger role in our families, and our family roles are much more expanded. Okay. And if you're sitting there waiting for your guy to come and sweep you up and, take you off into the sunset, honey, that is the wrong idea. If you're more worried about your wedding than you are about the day after your wedding, honey, do it over again. That's the wrong focus. And, and so that fairy tale mentality really does not serve us, especially as young women.
It does not serve us.
No, I think we have a 3-way agreement on that. That's definitely something I would tell my 20-year-old self is that, you don't have to get married in order to be good enough, right?
Yes.
You can be good enough without being a wife. You can be good enough without being a mother. You get to make these choices and decisions for yourself. And you don't have to make them right away. Take your time and see what feels right for you. So that's definitely some advice I would give my 20-year-old self.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right. Don't forget what you said. You have to say about one of the things I do. I've told my daughter that one already. And one of the things I try to do is when I see people these days doing something, I hear this a lot, especially on Facebook. And in conversations where people say, well, why are you still single? That question is inappropriate. And I don't mind letting somebody know that, because they're not talking to me because I've been married forever. They're talking to somebody else. And I can say, that's not cool, or I can give that person they were talking to some support and say, you just, shake that off because that's stupid. I mean, the question and just kind of supporting them to know everybody doesn't think you should be married by now. Why are you still single? You don't owe that to anybody, but that is so much part of our cult. Like I said it, and you hear it all the time. You hear other people saying, why are you still single? Why aren't you married yet?
Why don't you have kids?
Yeah, why don't you have kids? All these are 100% inappropriate questions to ask that are very commonly asked. And it makes the person they're talking to feel like they're behind. They missed the goal. They're not there yet. And because I don't believe that, I don't like to let people get away with that.
Yeah, I get it. I was going to agree with Stephanie about I would call it enoughness. If I were to change my answer from a few minutes ago, from the very beginning, I think that would be the number one thing that I would want to tell myself as a 20-year-old is you are enough. And that goes to everything. If you don't feel enough, like you are enough, then it bleeds into every other decision that you make, whether it be relationship wise, whether it be career wise. You might not feel like you're enough to go up for that promotion. You might not, you talk to yourself in a different way when you don't feel enough. You might choose a guy because he likes you and you don't see any other prospects. So you go with him because you don't feel like enough. Right. And if I could go back, so I'm stealing your answer because I think it's the best one for me. It's the best one. No, but seriously, if I were to do it over again, I would start right there and just try to fill all those little holes of, where I didn't feel like I was enough. In some ways, I felt like, oh, yes, I'm here, I'm there. But there were so many other places that life had to show me that I was enough. But if I could start over and feel like a full vessel when I started off into my career and my relationship, wow, how empowering that would have been.
Exactly.
Sit there and think about what might be different with my life if I had thought I was enough a while ago.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a journey, and I get it. I mean, we're not here to start off at 100% and work
But that would have been
backwards.
nice. Come on.
But it would have been nice. That would have been really nice. And you don't. The journey would have been completely different. Yes, but I think if I had even started off with a higher percentage of enoughness, that would have been a really great thing. I mean, because you're always seeking out, to be fulfilled, and it has to start within you. It really doesn't start out externally. So.
Yeah, I love the way you said that, even starting with a higher percentage, because just like you said, we all have a journey. And if it wasn't that, then it would have been something else. Mm-hmm. But with that being such a core thing, and with us being vessels that have these little cracks and leaks in them, mm-hmm. if we could have plugged up just a few more to be a little bit more of a stable and whole vessel, we could have made decisions that would have taken us down a different path, but maybe that path would have had more international travel and more adventure and more, comfort in our own sexuality and our own power. And, there would have been different lessons to learn with that. But some of those basic ones, I think we try to, as parents, we try to plug as many of those holes in that vessel, right?
Yeah.
So that they can start off from as stable and as whole a place as they can. We know they're not going to be perfect and they're going to have their own challenges.
Right.
But we try to give them as much as they can in the beginning.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I think part of it for me, because there are things I feel like I wish I had known, I should have known earlier. Some other people knew and I didn't know. And I feel like they got to jump on life and experiences before me. I have learned at this point, I can't change the thing in the past.
Right.
So what did I get out of the journey? 'Cause that's the other part. When things go wrong or bad, or, they feel wrong and bad, that's part of the journey. And I've learned to appreciate, when things don't go right, and there's nothing I can do to change it. It's just that something didn't work out. Then what did I learn in the process, and how can that help me in the future? And just reframing mistakes or failures as educational moments and moving on. That's what over time I've been able to recognize. Okay, I'm going to have these little dips and things are going to happen that I don't feel right. But where's the open door? I've learned that usually there's an open door somewhere. There's something else happening for me. So just changing my perspective. Had I been able to do that earlier, might have been good for me as well. It was something I learned along the way, and I think everybody has their journey, and they have to have things go wrong so they can learn. Mm-hmm. I still think it'd be good to teach that early on as well.
Absolutely. I love that one. And just like having a little bit of fun, since we're kind of doing the crystal ball time travel thing. What would we have told our 20-year-old self to do less of?
Worry about that boy. Mm-hmm. You cried and felt depressed about that boy. You should have let him go. If you knew who you were, if you knew you were enough, you would have gone on and met other boys or had other fun experiences with your girlfriends, and you would have been able to get back onto your feet sooner and enjoy life more. I spent way too much time worried about a boy in my life. So that's one of the things. That's the first thing that came to mind.
Gosh, I'm sitting here thinking about it, but I think I would have spent less time worrying about what other people thought about my actions or what I was doing or how I was approaching things. I think, honestly, it's something I've worried about, like, to a certain extent for a very long time. And now as I get older, I think once you hit that crossroads of 40, I think there's this self-evaluation of like, girl, just let it go. And I think I'm getting to that point where I'm really much closer to where I want to be with that. But I will have to say that has been a struggle for myself and or a challenge. I won't say a struggle. I don't think I struggled with it, but I think a lot of women do. A lot of women make decisions based on what someone else is going to think about the house that they're buying or the shoes that they buy or whatever, fill in the blank, and if I had to do it all over again, I would spend about 75% less time worrying about what other people thought about what I did for myself or my household.
Yeah, that I definitely agree with both of those. That those are great answers. And the other thing I wonder is, what would
you didn't answer that for yourself?
Yeah, I was waiting for
that. I heard mine. I heard Rhumel's, but don't even try it.
Just let me get away with that.
Call you on the carpet right here.
Okay.
What would you do less of?
I would do less self-criticism. That would definitely be my number one thing, to criticize myself less. I was really hard on myself as a 20-year-old. And I think I was a bit of a perfectionist and wanted to be perfect in all of these areas. And failure was not an option. Whereas, like you were saying, failure is so important to learning and to growth. And now I can see that, this is just an opportunity to see things from a different perspective and to look for the open door. Failure was soul crushing back then because I was so hard on myself. So that's what I would do less of, self-criticism.
Nice. Another podcast.
Y'all are like the police.
I was waiting for it too. I was like, well, I already took over a show at one point, so I'm not going to do it again.
And then she tag teamed me.
Never to leave you in the dust, girl. Never to leave you out there.
The other thing I thought was interesting is, what would we have told our 20-year-old self to do earlier that we waited and did a little bit later, but we would have been like, girl, you should have did that much earlier. And I think you may have mentioned something already, Twanda, that you would have told yourself to do earlier. So think of something different. And then Rhumel, what would you have told yourself to do earlier?
Let me see. I am thinking about this, and I know it's similar to what Twanda said, but I think I would have traveled a little bit more starting off. But I don't know. I think it would have definitely been travel, because that's the one thing since I started having kids I can't do anymore. I don't think I appreciated the freedom of being able to move about and not have to worry about our kids and everything. Because although I didn't get married as early as Twanda, my husband and I have been together since I was 20. Mm-hmm. And so even though we weren't married, we were in a committed relationship. So, for the first 9 years of our relationship, we had availability to do those things that would have been fun and maybe more enriching and things like that. But I think we kind of squandered it. And I wish we hadn't. So now we're just waiting for our kids to kind of go off and stuff so we can go out and enjoy ourselves again.
Yeah. I definitely wish I would have traveled. I feel like at the time I didn't think that I had the money, but now I see people traveling like on a little bit. I guess my taste was too luxurious, because people they travel, they go to hostels, and they can do it on a budget, and I wasn't really aware of that. But one thing I definitely would have done earlier was to network. It was something that my uncle always told me that I needed to do, and he would put me in situations where I could do it and introduce me to people. but I just didn't feel, I don't think I felt confident enough in myself, and I didn't see the value in it. I saw the value in having my own friendships and relationships, but I didn't see the value in networking and kind of going outside. And now I see that some people network their way into their first job, and now they are CEOs and they're the C-suite because somebody they networked with when they were 18 or 20 or 21 years old. And I'm like, whoa, I really missed the boat on that.
Mm-hmm. I think for you, and you're talking about networking, you have to know to do it. It helps to know to do it early. I don't think it hurts at any point in time to do it, but it helps to know to do it early, especially when you're in college meeting some of the people who are going to be great people who can give you a leg up later on. I didn't understand that and didn't know that because my parents didn't know it either, and they didn't do it. So they couldn't teach me how to do it. So even if I heard that I should do it, I didn't know how. I hadn't seen it done. I knew that other people were excellent at networking, and oftentimes they already had people in place who could give them a leg up. I knew that I didn't have that. So I didn't know how to work that networking thing. I didn't know how that was supposed to work. So doing that early would be great. Knowing how to do it, being able to practice it. There's some people who knew how to do that, and I watched them do it in college, and I still didn't figure out how to do it. I'm not even sure I know how to do it right now, to be honest. But making that a priority, I agree 100%. That would have done me very well. I got married at 22, had my first kid at 24, and then, had a kid every 2 years after that till I had 3, so you're talking about what would I do earlier? I was like, dang, I'm kind of early.
I know. It's like, it wasn't bad.
Yeah, I did that real early. So I was having trouble trying to figure out what I know. The one thing that I've learned about and have been playing with more that I wish I had done earlier was trust my own intuition. So
that's excellent.
Now I can recognize, one of my superpowers with my intuition is knowing who I think could be my friend immediately and knowing who can't be my friend immediately and not having to explain that away. It's like, we can be friends. I know that. We can't be friends, and I'm unapologetic, right? And it doesn't make any logical sense. And I grew up in the church, so it was more like, don't judge and this and that. And it's like, oh, now I know I get some gut feelings about situations, about people, about job opportunities. And I wish I had trusted myself, my intuition enough to go with it and understand that, there's a little something inside of me making decisions and looking at the whole situation and saying, you would be better over here. You would be better over here. This is a good decision. Move with that. But because I couldn't explain it, I went against my intuition. And then I found myself so many times saying, oh, I thought about doing it that way, or I should have done it that way. Yeah. I would encourage the younger folks to pay attention to that little voice inside of them. Now, you have to make sure you don't get the little devil on your shoulder. So, I mean, there's always that, but sometimes we just kind of have that gut feeling we should go with that.
Can I just drop in really quickly to say this?
I want to steal that one too. I love that.
Yeah, it's definitely. Twanda and I, when we first became friends, I don't know if you know this, but when we first became friends, it was one of these instinctual things too. It was like, we were like, oh, we're looking for friends. You're it. Quite literally. Yeah. Wow. And
how it happened.
Yeah. And we've been friends for like 13 years or something. And it was very, I think we both felt that very quickly from just very casual meeting. And when
it doesn't even make any sense. So it just is that intuition picks up. And I've seen people in other scenarios, and it's like, well, my friend card is full. I really don't have time to incorporate more friends. But I'm like, man, girl, we could be friends.
Yeah.
I was just on a panel on Thursday night, and that exact topic came up, how with sisterhood and friendships, some people are like, okay, I have my kindergarten friends, I have my high school friends, I have my college friends, I'm done, I'm full. And other people are just open to making new relationships, because just like you said, some people are in your life for a season or for a reason, and this season there may be new friends for you to have, for them to come into your life, to work through a purpose. So I'm always open for new friends.
Oh yeah, we hit it off real well. First time it was like, oh, this is gonna be easy.
Yeah,
when we all talked,
when we all talked for the first time, it felt like we had known each other for a very long time. So
yeah, it was good, and I love that about the intuition, because I definitely have learned to trust my intuition more. But my 20-year-old self could have use some confidence in that area about trusting her intuition. Some situations not to go into could have probably been avoided by that sixth sense that you have.
Yeah, we have it. Agree. So talking about that more and in empowering our girls to pay attention to that. Now, I say girls because there's this thing about women's intuition. I'm a girl. I don't know what men have. I'm a little suspect on some of that stuff, but I am a woman. I've never been a boy.
My husband calls his first mind.
Interesting. So yeah, I don't know, but I know that for girls, and I have one, and so I've definitely helped her to acknowledge you have an intuition, girl. What does your gut tell you? Because and that helps. I ask her, well, what does it feel like to you? What does your gut tell you? So I give her permission, to check in with herself and let me know what that feels like.
Yeah, I think I think that listening to our daughters empowers them. When we honestly listen to them and we honestly let them talk to us and say hard things to us, it empowers them. It lets them know that what they have to say is important. Now, I know I can't go back to my 20-year self and change my folks. I think they did the absolute best thing that they could have done with me, so no complaints. But I think what you're doing, Twanda, is you're giving her a gift by giving her that space to understand that she can listen to herself, that she's enough, that she is enough. And, and so for my children, I try to give them that space as well. But every time we do it, we fill up one of those cracks. So they go in a little bit more. So
by the time I have great grandchildren, I will be an expert filling the crevices. And you know what? Maybe that's part of our purpose. We're over here having this conversation about what we would tell our 20-year-old selves. We can't fix our 20-year-old selves, and do it all over again, but we can have an effect on the upcoming generation and generations. So if we can come together and have these conversations with each other, share these conversations, these episodes with other moms of girls and boys, so that we're all having this conversation and normalizing talking to our kids about this, that we can make a change for years to come.
And I think also forgiving ourselves for not knowing what we didn't know.
Oh, thank you for saying that.
Yeah,
I still ain't forgiving myself for not knowing some of these things. And I think it drives me to make sure I make it better for other people. Yeah. But I probably should forgive myself. I'm going to put that on my to-do list.
Yeah. Your to-do list is getting long over there. You make it all types of commitments.
She loves a list. She loves a list. So.
Okay. Yes, I love the legacy piece of it, the legacy that we get to leave just by having these conversations. But I also think that we can't go back in time, but I think that our 20-year-old self is still a part of who we are today. She still lives in there, just like our 8-year-old self still lives in there. And sometimes they show up. I know my 8-year-old self comes out when I'm tired, and I'm overly stressed, she comes out and she throws temper tantrums. And I have to like have a conversation with her and be like, okay, well, what is it that you need? What's going on? And I have to mother that 8-year-old self.
Love it.
And what I found is that because like I said, you know, my mother wasn't always present, you know, she probably didn't get all the mothering that she needed, but I have the opportunity to do some of that mothering now so that she can heal. And that affects me in my current state because she's still in there, all of those. So I haven't done as much work with my 20-year-old self as I have with my 8-year-old self. So the question is, have you told your 20-year-old self who's still inside of you any of these things that we just talked about today?
I have talked to her about a lot of things, but I think the biggest gift that I have given myself or have been working on is the forgiveness aspect of it. Because we come to the table with what we have, right? There's no book that comes along with this, this life that we live. We're given the parents that we're given the circumstances that we're given. And most of us, we try to do the absolute best we can. And we try to strive for the best life that we can have. And it's not always a vertical climb. It's horizontal, it's down, it's up. And when we have those downs, we have to say, okay, this is what I did wrong. Let's go. Let's forgive ourselves and let's move on, right? And I think for a long time, I used to beat myself up for those things, those decisions that I made that changed the direction of my life. And I'll tell you, this is a very quick, for instance, I was talking to Twanda this week and I told her I realized there was a decision I made when I was 30, maybe 31, that literally, I thought it was the smallest decision and it literally changed the direction of my life. Like I probably wouldn't know her. I probably would be in a different state and everything. And for the longest time, I beat myself up for that change because it caused, it just caused this different circumstance. Okay. And, I used to beat myself up for it. Mm-hmm. But this past week I said, well, I wouldn't have met Twanda. I wouldn't have been on this path that I'm on. I probably wouldn't have a third kid right now had this situation not happened. And it was off of this little thing. And I used to beat myself up for not making, taking the red pill versus the blue pill, so to speak, right? And there was no right answer. It just was. And it changed the direction. And it was just the way that my life was going. And I'm happy. I'm happy with where I am. I'm happy with my kids. I'm happy with my friends. I'm happy with where I live. But if I had chosen the other direction, I don't know what my life would have looked like. But for the longest time, I beat myself up for it. And then I was like, you know what? It is all good. Mm-hmm. Let that go. But I'm 50 and I just let it go this week. Mm-hmm. Okay.
You too can get it when you get 50. Now, we want that to happen earlier, but you're talking about accepting your life path and saying, and this is good, or I can make something good from it. I think it would be helpful to know that in whatever decision I make on my life path, I can make it good. I can make it work. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean sudden and utter failure. It doesn't mean you reached a dead end. You just have a different set of doors that you can go through. It doesn't mean it's as bad. I guess that would be helpful to know that any decision I made, because I'm telling you, I like some of the decisions that I made. I'm going to give you an example. I could have gone on a full scholarship to a college in my hometown. or I can get in a whole heck of a lot of debt. Oh, in a degree that would have had me set pretty much better than I did when I went to the other route, where I went to another school that put me in a lot of debt to have a degree that did very little for me. I'm a little bitter about that still. But then I met my husband there, and I have these great kids, and it put me in this place that have opened up other opportunities for me. I've looked at I don't really know, Rhumel, if I've forgiven myself for not taking that other route.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have, but I have learned that you can make decisions and then find ways to live and make that okay. Now, Stephanie, you said you have your 8-year-old self in there that you've mothered, and I get that. And when you say it, it makes a whole lot of sense to me. But when I look inside of myself, I don't feel the same way. When you see that tantrum that comes out when I didn't have enough sleep, that's the 46-year-old me having a freaking tantrum right now. And I never applied that to an 8-year-old self or something like that. No, that's me having a tantrum right now.
Right.
Where I feel like you seem to connect with that inner girl who still lives inside of you. That's something I'm going to have to explore after this session.
I know.
This conversation, because I see that person in the past, like I am the older self. So I feel like, if anything, I'm still counseling myself at this age, maybe I'm working on that forgiveness. Oh, you didn't know that when you were 20, but I have a harder time seeing the 20-year-old me and speaking to her. I'm still trying to speak to the today Twanda in light of what happened and got me here to this point.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I mean, it's almost kind of weird to think about it that way. But for me, it's a little bit easier, because when I just kind of go back to what the 8-year-old Stephanie knew and what she was experiencing and why she was doing the things that she was doing, that she was responding to, trauma, and that was her coping mechanism. And so it's much easier for me to empathize. Like, you had no other choice. That's all you knew. And that's what you used to get you to the point that you were at. But now that I am my 50-year-old self, I can say, okay, I no longer need to do that. I'm not in that situation. I'm not, in a traumatic situation. It's just gas. I ran out of gas. That's it. That's all it is, Right. So I can just like empathize with her and let her know that it's okay. And then come back to who I am today in terms of what I've, the healing that I've done and the growth that I've done, to know that it's going to work out. Even if I'm stuck here, it's going to work out. I have AAA. I can give them a call. It's okay.
You're a responsible adult.
Right. I'm a responsible adult. But I just try to love on her, because sometimes she just needs a lot of love. And when I'm burning the candle from both ends, I'm not giving her the love that she needs. And so I just have to love on her. And I've figured out ways to do that.
I think we're saying the same thing in different perspectives. From a different perspective, you are much better at identifying different parts of your life and speaking to that and acknowledging and seeing where that still lives in you today. And you still speak to her. I'm speaking to something too. It could be from my older self, but right now I just see it as the accumulation of who I am today. And I try to speak to that person. And I think about the girl who was 20 and the decisions that girl made. And I still, I try to forgive that situation. I try to say, you know what, she did that because she didn't know any better. She did that and because she didn't know she was enough. She still had a lot of holes in her enoughness that weren't filled. And that's why she made those decisions. And then I tell my today self, but that was her then, and her today is going to do better. Her today is going to look at it differently. And so I feel like we're doing something similar, just maybe with a slightly different perspective.
Yeah, I think so too.
I have a question for the two of you guys. So what would your 20-year-old self want to tell you?
That's a good one.
I don't see why you have to do that. That wasn't in the show notes. I wasn't prepared for that question.
I know. Here she go again, taking over my show.
I know, right? We ain't never gonna get an invitation back from Mel.
No, I know. I'll behave.
No, that is a good one. And I thought about that question. I didn't have an answer for it right away, but I think what my 20-year-old self would tell my today self is, I am so proud of you, girl. You have done amazing things and you are Black girl magic personified. Obviously, I wouldn't know that phrase, but that's what I would tell myself. And I would tell her, whenever you feel discouraged or you feel like you're not as far as you should be, think about where you were when you were me and look at where you are now. You are way beyond what anybody ever expected us to be able to do.
Wow. I love that. I think as a 20-year-old, I think I lived so much in the now. Of course, I was thinking about my future, but, you know, when you're 20 and you don't have the responsibilities to worry about, like, you got to get home to your kids and you got to, you know, as an older person, I always have the pressures of other things coming into play. But as a 20-year-old, I think I lived life with a lot less restriction. And I think my 20-year-old self would say, girl, just let go just a little bit. In the same way that I would say to my 20-year-old self, like, who felt kind of wound up, like all this wound up energy that I needed to get out and, you know, create and do and be this big career woman. I think I would say, my 20-year-old self would say, you know, you've done these things. Now it's okay for you to live back in the moment. So I think it's kind of both ways.
That's awesome. I love that. I love how your 20-year-old self can give your future self some advice on living in the moment, because she's good at doing that.
Yeah. Yeah. She was excellent. She had a lot of fun. We didn't think about all the repercussions.
I think I was having trouble figuring out what in the world my 20-year-old self could tell me, because she ain't no crap. You're right. But there was a few things that 20-year-old Twanda knew that 46-year-old Twanda keeps forgetting. So I think my 20-year-old self would remind my present self of all the things that I thought was fun, or what my passions are. Because oftentimes I forget, because I've got too many other people's fun and passions to think about on a daily basis. So I forget. So I think my 20-year-old, because she was young and didn't have as much pressure of the world, so she was into her passions. I could probably list them out easily, and what I did for fun and what was curious for me and what was interesting. And with all this life being piled on that we have now, I'm living for a lot of other people right now. And so I forget about the things that were uniquely mine, that I enjoyed, I loved, and I was passionate about. So that's the thing that she could give me now. I should call her up and ask her, because I have questions.
I don't remember either.
I have some questions.
Like, what did I like to do?
I love that. What a nice reminder. Yeah. So we might want to ask her sometimes when we get lost.
Yeah, that's true. I have to ask her, see what she says. Yeah, she probably won't answer the phone.
I was going to say, I'm sure she's just as funny as you are now to me. Oh my gosh. I'm laughing.
Oh, this has been a wonderful conversation. I just want to thank you both for spending this time with me, because I know you're both busy and you have lots of things to do. But this was a really special time. So thank you.
I enjoyed it. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. The pleasure was definitely ours, and we just feel very privileged that you would have us on your show.
Thank you for listening to this episode of SOAR. If you'd like to reach me for coaching, you can reach me at www.stephaniebrowncoaching.com. And if you want to follow SOAR, you can follow Sisters Overcoming and Rising on Instagram or Stephanie Brown Coaching on Facebook. Goodbye for now.